code. So now, see, that was easy. All the stuff, you're on to all the information. You need to just build and you need to talk to us. If you do these two things well, I've seen probably, I haven't done the maths, probably about 50,000 hackers just do hackathons with Encode. And I could probably name the best 50, 100. I hope you're one of them. And I know a number have come from the Polkadot ecosystem before. So, little workshop now. What we'll do, there's no transitioning. Radha will come onto the stage. He will share his screen and he'll talk you through everything that you need to know from a technical level, or some of the things you need to know from a technical level to get started. Look at that, by magic. I don't have to do anything. So Radha, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Look at that, I'm done, and I will turn question manager in the chat. I'm sure there'll be lots, and over to you to talk about some wonderful things.
Thank you. Is it okay to start 10 minutes early?
Yes, it is. It's absolutely fine.
Very cool. Very cool.
If they miss it, it's beautifully recorded immediately after. So it's smooth and great. We'll stay on message. Go ahead, sir.
All right, let's do this. Oh, the wrong share button. Right, there we go. Yeah, as you can see, I have a lot of content to go through. I think I was on the last slide right there. Okay, so here's the QR code for you. Like if you want to view this slide deck like later on, or while I'm going through, just feel free to like use this QR code. The organizers can also share the slide deck in the chat. Okay, so a little bit of backdrop about me, for you to be able to connect with who I am, what's my connection to Polkadot ecosystem. So I'm the technical education lead at Web3 Foundation. In the previous life, I was a teaching professor at the University of Vermont, computer science background with AI, especially like computer vision research background. So I've moved to like Web3 Foundation 4 years back, and ever since I've been working on educating like Polkadot to diverse audience. So giving talks like these, is also part of like my day job. All right, so what's going on with the Polkadot Scalability Hackathon is that, we have like multiple, ecosystem partners who are sort of, letting you explore different features exposed by Polkadot. So Web3 Foundation, which is where I'm from, is sort of curating the Polkadot core bounty, which is up to $30,000. In this, like I mentioned earlier, $20,000 is set aside for smart contracts. And shortly, I'll tell you the historic context as to why Polkadot never had native smart contracts, but it is getting them this year. So let's see like where all of this history is sort of converging right now. All right, so let me give you a broad overview of like what I mean when I say Polkadot, right? So Polkadot is not just a blockchain, it's a set of blockchains. So there are around 45 independent like blockchains. You can call them rollups, you can call them parachains that are running along with like Polkadot. And collectively, all of those blockchains have over 10 million accounts. This data is from January or maybe March. So it's so we have like this multi-chain ecosystem that is being secured under the Polkadot security umbrella. Now, there is a huge misconception on what Polkadot is, which is very evident. If you go to any sort of socials like Twitter, X, you find discussions where people say things that are not actually factual about like Polkadot protocol. So here is a thing that happened like when was this? April 5th, right? Like day before yesterday. So someone claims Solana has about 1,000 times monthly activity than Polkadot, to which Gavin would like reply today, like just a couple of hours ago. When you refer to Polkadot, don't just refer to the Polkadot blockchain, but refer to the whole Polkadot ecosystem, right? Like, so the Polkadot chain is not just having transactions on itself, it's securing like transactions across like multiple chains as well. This is something that a lot of people don't get and then try to sort of make their own conclusions of what Polkadot does. So my task for the first 10-15 minutes is to give you an overview of like how Polkadot works, and then we go into what developer pathway you should be taking to excel in this hackathon competition. All right, so just to disprove like people's claim on like Polkadot's transactions per second, we as a community ran this spamming event. So we literally gave like people accounts on these parachains that we spun up for this campaign, and then they were just asked to spam the chain. So people were able to go to this link, polkadot.com/spamming. So they had like a dashboard like this where you could connect your wallet and then sort of simply spam the chain. So in this experiment, just with like I think 40 parachains, we were able to achieve about 150K TPS. So that's the number of transactions the whole Polkadot relay chain could process. Of course, we didn't do this on a production chain like Polkadot. We have Kusama, which is another network. So it's not exactly a testnet. We call it like Canary Network because Kusama has its own token and it has some economic value. But so all the cutting edge technology that makes it to Polkadot lives on Kusama first. So that's where all brand new features are experimented with. And that's why like even the zero knowledge advances that we are trying to make in the Polkadot ecosystem, we want to bootstrap that on Kusama right there. So in any case, so we sort of proved that we can crunch a lot of transactions, and we also have this technical design that allows for you to build applications with a lot of cost efficiency. For instance, so this is not through any incentive program. It's exactly how much like the Polkadot chain sort of charges you for like stable transfers. So we believe Web3 should be accessible, to the masses, and we created a technology stack that sort of enables a lot of people across the world to be able to use the product that we built, right? So so we post some of the very cheap network fees, and that is definitely not out of some incentive program, like I said. So Polkadot architecture is capable of crunching a lot of transaction volume. So this was also seen during the inscriptions craze, like back in December 2023. A lot of chains have experienced a lot of congestion during that time, like Polkadot, but Polkadot sort of handled it with grace. And this is also like the underlying reason why applications and blockchains that want to have like a lot of volume of transactions, they are switching to Polkadot SDK and Polkadot architecture. So one of the key examples that we give is Mythical Games. So you can look them up. They're one of the mainstream gaming, gaming companies that have happened to explore like blockchain technology. And then initially they deployed like an EVM compatible like chain, and they sort of migrated that to like Polkadot architecture, and now they're like a Parachain on Polkadot, but they host like the official apps for NFL and FIFA. So the thing is, users register to these apps, they play the game, but have no clue that behind the scenes their gaming assets are being secured on this chain that is treating all of them as NFTs, and then all of those NFT transactions are being abstracted away from the user and working as expected. So this is also evident in other large volume, like, Web3 applications like social media. So for if gaming gives a lot of like transaction volume, think of like social media, especially with the media giants like Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. You're gonna have a lot of transaction volume there, depending on like what you treat as transaction. So we have like a social media focused parachain as well, which is called Frequency. So currently the frequency, so the entity behind like Frequency Parachain, which is Project Liberty, is trying to acquire like TikTok, which has over 170 million users, and they are able to confidently do that because they're confident about like the blockchain infrastructure they have beneath. So they're considering this bid, knowing that Polkadot infrastructure will be able to handle that volume. And also, like you see, they've constructed what's called a social graph in their protocol. So they've implemented all the specification for this, using like Polkadot SDK as a Rust implementation. Fine. So I think this gave you a little bit of context on where we are headed. Yes, like DeFi, smart contracts, and decentralized finance, they go hand in hand. I mean, if you just want to swap tokens or write like this Uniswap style code, then yes, smart contracts are great. But if you want to do anything further, anything that requires a lot of like customization, so that is where we are seeing a lot of traction, while using Polkadot technology stack. Okay, so how are we making things efficient and easier for all of these different use cases, right? So at the end of the day, what is the commodity, like these applications that are looking at? So if we think of it that way, all of these applications want some amount of block space, right? So they want to put their transactions somewhere, they want to have access to the blockchain state, they want the blockchain to be able to handle the scale of their applications. So that's why we sort of repositioned ourselves as not just blockchain, but rather as Web3 cloud. So when you see this messaging online that Polkadot is like a Web3 cloud, so this is what exactly it means. So you as a blockchain can have access to the Polkadot security umbrella from block one. Your transactions are secure from your block number one, and then you can have access to this block space 24/7. Or let's say you built an application that need not run a blockchain 24/7. So let's say you are consolidating transactions at the end of the day, and you just want to post them to your own private ledger. Polkadot will sort of allow that for you as well. So we allow on-demand posting of transactions, or a blockchain that runs 24/7. We even go a little bit further. So this is the famous Ethereum example, where CryptoKitties has caused this congestion and then almost like broke the network. So what if a situation like this arises in Polkadot? So what if one of the 45 parachains that are live is facing a huge uptick in like the number of transactions it is having to process? Then Polkadot can actually do what's called elastic scaling. So this feature will go live like in a couple of months. So what it does is it allocates more resources. It's like it's kind of like load balancing in a way. So there are lots of transactions that need to be processed. So the parachain can actually get access to more validators on Polkadot to sort of do this crunching. And then once the volume goes back to normal, it can just work on like one single core, right? So so Polkadot is sort of like revolutionizing the way in which like block space is sort of assigned to different applications with different needs. So what's the unique selling point for Polkadot, right? So if you built an application today, you're planning to launch your own blockchain or app chain or even like an application, the idea is that you need not bootstrap like your own validator network to sort of get the security. You should be able to plug into like Polkadot and then have your transactions secured from day one, right? So that is the unique selling point of like Polkadot. And the other thing is, think of everybody else who's being secured by Polkadot. If you want to talk to them, that connection should not depend on each other's like security. So the communication between like two chains or two applications within Polkadot should enjoy the same level of security as they enjoy individually. So shared security for the block space and the shared security for even like communication. So this is what like Polkadot offers as a unique selling point. Now, cross-chain messaging. So think of Ethereum and then all of its L2s, right? So they are now thinking about, so now we have a bunch of L2s. How do we ensure these layer 2 blockchains talk to each other securely? So they are venturing into something Polkadot already ventured into, 4 years ago. So we started with XCM, which is the cross consensus messaging format. So basically, over 1 million cross-chain messages were sent in the Polkadot ecosystem. And mainly we use it for asset transfers, but also if you explore a little bit deeper, we have shown XCM transactions that could do even more advanced stuff, like minting NFTs on a destination chain, doing cross-chain calls to do dollar cost averaging of like an asset. So through governance on one chain and then doing these operations on a destination chain. So the imagination and the possibilities of what can be done with like cross-chain applications. So Polkadot has been exploring in the last 4 years, and we have a lot of insights to share to Ethereum community as well, if they're open for like feedback. And then one of the key things that I am sort of very excited about regarding Polkadot is that we have trustless bridges. So this is not a common sight across the blockchain ecosystem, right? So you hear that this bridge got hacked for $500 million, or so. The numbers that they show there are insane. The amount of funds that are being mismanaged on these bridges that require like a multi-sig, which could easily be socially engineered, so they crumble under these social engineering or basic like hacking attacks. So we have seen this like often, and then we're like, can we design a protocol where Polkadot understands what transaction is final on Ethereum, and Ethereum understands which transaction is final on Polkadot, right? So there's no middleman here. There's no bridge per se on which this happens. So what happens is Polkadot will run an Ethereum light client as a part of its protocol. And Ethereum will have a smart contract which sort of runs like a Polkadot light client, on Ethereum. So both these ecosystems are able to understand which transaction got finalized. And that's the beauty of like trustless bridges. So here you don't have to rely on someone. So the 600 validators set on Polkadot and the 1,000 validators on or more on Ethereum. So they are the guarantors of these transactions. So if you're interested, I have more links for you like later on. So Snowbridge is like the trustless bridge between Polkadot and Ethereum. All right, so how do we go about like building these blockchains, right? So definitely you're not writing code in like Solidity. So Solidity, you can write a smart contract, yes, but it doesn't take you to an extent where you can customize your whole blockchain architecture and design, right? So that's what Polkadot SDK is for. So it gives you like full customizability of the business logic of your chain. So you're able to write code in Rust, and you compile the business logic into WebAssembly, and then run it on one of your nodes. So this is the design decision like Polkadot took. So they were like, yeah, Rust is like a super performant language because we're going to blockchains are like very redundant, so this software is going to run on so many machines, so we need like a very strong memory safe performant language, and that's why like Rust was chosen. And then they were like, okay, so Rust is fine, but do we want to compile it natively, or do we want to compile it into something that is EVM compatible, or shall we explore a more generic option like WebAssembly, right? So WebAssembly is very portable. It runs on almost any machine, like even within like browsers. So this was the design decision like Polkadot took, which is good, but it was also a curse because a lot of like Web3 developers, if you look at like the job descriptions, 90% of them, they are well versed with like Solidity. They've built like really interesting applications with Solidity or some smart contract language. Not many of them with Rust. So the Rust developers, the concrete Rust developers that we know may not be like really interested in blockchain or Web3. So we face this issue that the talent influx from the Web3 ecosystems, it wasn't that much. And that's why I say like this hackathon plays a very crucial role, because we're experimenting with bringing in like more developers who are familiar with like Solidity, right? So and then being able to deploy something on Polkadot where the smart contract can have access to all this cross-chain functionality, direct access to all Polkadot's core features. I think that's an interesting area to like explore, and that's what we'll be exploring in this 4 weeks. So a brief, overview of like parachains, which can also be thought of as like rollups. So if you look at like the parachains on Polkadot.js, so every individual like parachain here, like Asset Hub, Bridge Hub, Akala, Moonbeam, so all of them have their own individual block numbers, right? So these are all individual like blockchains that are sending their blocks and transactions to be validated and sort of included. The finality of those transactions is being derived from being re-executed on Polkadot. So the way it works is, so when I say all of these parachains enjoy the same level of security, so it works this way. So every minute or so, you'll see that this validator group of Polkadot is shuffling. So these are the 5 validators that were assigned to like Asset Hub. So every minute or so, they get shuffled in a random manner. So if you want to target this particular chain, and if you want to DDoS it, or if you want to influence it in some way, you'll have to really attack all of these validators, right? So, but nobody has this knowledge ahead of time. If you want to really affect like one of the chains, you have to affect like at least 1/3 of like the validators, to even make something like a targeted attack to a parachain. So this randomized assignment of these validator sets is what ensures that all of these parachains or rollups are going to be secure. And that's where like the whole shared security is derived from. So if you're interested in the core protocol of Polkadot, talk to me after this session. So I'm happy to sort of walk you through the documentation that can actually give you full insight into how this works. So, and then some of these rollups are part of like the Polkadot core protocol itself. So this is what Ethereum doesn't have. There's just one Ethereum chain, right? So Polkadot has all these like sidekicks or side chains, which we call like system chains. So Polkadot can offload few tasks to these side chains, right? So Asset Hub deals with like assets like NFTs or like stable coins, USDC, USDT. So all of those are minted on Asset Hub. Collectives is where we organize our DAOs. So basically, Polkadot Technical Fellowship, which I'll talk about like later on. So they live on that shard, on that system chain. So Bridge Hub is where the Ethereum Lite client is running. So it's sort of trying to understand what's happening on Ethereum side. And that Lite client implementation is part of like the blockchain runtime of Bridge Hub. So People Chain, this is where all of the identities of Polkadot ecosystem accounts are. So, and then Core Time is where like this. So I showed to you earlier, Polkadot tries to give this core time for block space. So this is the chain that sort of deals with this allocation of resources. And also Polkadot validators have like a very interesting design. So if you look at Cosmos, which is also a multi-chain ecosystem, their validators, like, they have to run a binary for every single chain that they're sort of validating. So you can think of it as they have to purchase a gaming console for every single chain that they run within the ecosystem. So in Polkadot, it's much more efficient. So there's this Polkadot node, and it allows you to plug in the blockchain business logics. Even I told you they are in the format of WebAssembly. So this WebAssembly cartridges can be plugged into this Polkadot validator node, and then the node sort of plays the game of that parachain. Okay, so this shuffling of validators that I showed. So let's say this validator is reassigned to another parachain. So immediately they'll download the state transition logic of that parachain and then start validating their transactions. So that's the beauty of the execution sharding design of Polkadot. So rather than a validator having to download the whole binary of the other chain, they just download this runtime, which is about like 1 megabyte in length. So they download that, and then they act like a node for that particular rollup or parachain. So it's a very elegant design in a way. So enough talking. So I'll sort of interact with some of the chains in Polkadot ecosystem, and you get an idea of like how much technology breakthrough we have achieved in blockchain space. So let's go here. Not the assembly. All right, so the new interface for like Polkadot.js, it's because people confuse that with like a Polkadot wallet. So we had to be explicit saying, hey, go use Sub Wallet or Talisman or Nova Wallet if you're using like a mobile device. But let's go to the developer interface now. All right, so let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I said like Polkadot is this relay chain, right? So if you go to Parachains right here, you have the list of chains, each producing like a block, and then they're being like validated like with the Polkadot validators. So let's switch to one of the parachains. So I said Bridge Hub, right? So let's go here. Let's go to the extrinsics, and then so here what you're seeing is what we call a palette. You can think of this as a module or like a smart contract that has been heavily customized. So Ethereum Lite client implementation is sitting within the runtime of this particular blockchain. So the field is like open. So Akala, it's a DeFi chain. So if I go to their palettes, so if I go to the extrinsics and then try to look at their palettes, so you have like an aggregated DEX, you have like a DEX Oracle, so everything related to like decentralized finance. So the other favorite thing that I show usually is this parachain called Bitgreen. I don't know if they're with the Polkadot ecosystem yet, but they have interesting palettes here, which is like carbon credits, like general storage. So you get the idea. Like you define like what your blockchain or app chain should be doing, whether it's like hydration. So this is like the go-to place for DeFi on like Polkadot. And there's also like Moonbeam, which hosts like Stellar Swap, which is where a lot of like DeFi happens as well. So there's Mythos, which is like the gaming chain that I mentioned about. So you can also look at like the network activity. So how many NFTs were issued and how many are burned. So it's not a ghost chain. So it's there's a lot of activity that is happening across like all these like multi-chains that Polkadot has. And all of these transactions are being validated by Polkadot validators. And then, they're finalized on the Parachain end using the shared security that Polkadot has, right? So now if you're interested in like runtime development, then you'd be like focusing on this part. Okay. So you'll be building like these custom palettes, custom modules with a bunch of calls. So you'll think about a level deeper than writing a smart contract. You'll have to understand what the runtime complexity of this function is. You'll do some benchmarking and then sort of deploy this onto your chain. So it's a different way of like implementing things. It requires some learning curve, and that's why we have to have this dedicated sessions, or we have Polkadot Blockchain Academy where people actually sit for like 4 weeks and try to understand like all of this and get a head start in runtime development. So you can see like why there is an entry barrier, but once you cross that entry barrier, your opportunities are limitless in a way, right? So I mentioned about Frequency, which does a little bit of decentralized social networking protocol implementation. So they have like palettes to handle all of that. Okay, good. So let's go back to the presentation. All right, so I hope by now you understand what Polkadot is, what its technical design decisions were, and then we have this Parachains ecosystem that is trying to cater to different like Web3 use cases. But still, one of the key complaints that we keep hearing is like Polkadot has no users, Polkadot doesn't have a good developer experience, Polkadot doesn't have good wallets, which I showed you is not true. They're looking at the wrong wallet. So you just have to download the latest wallets that we have. So we keep hearing all of this. We understand, and we want to improve on that front, right? So we want to make Polkadot technology stack more accessible to the existing Web3 ecosystem. So this presentation, is crafted with that in mind. So depending on like what you're good at, like at developing, you can choose a specific field or area within Polkadot ecosystem to contribute to bettering Polkadot as well as Web3 in general. Now, so at the end, you have to decide your platform, whether your application is going to live on a browser, will it be on a mobile, or will it be a standalone app on desktop, whether you want to choose smart contracts. So there is this thing within the ecosystem. We heard that 90% of the parachains need not have like their own like chain. Most of the functionalities they were implementing, it could have been implemented as a smart contract. So we hear that feedback. Okay, so you need not launch an app chain for your idea. If it could be done with smart contract in an efficient way, then do a smart contract. So we don't want to push you to develop like an app chain for it, right? But you do need app chain in some points. For instance, a smart contract execution in EVM. So the way it works is for every instruction, it keeps checking if there is enough gas to execute the next instruction, right? So it's like an unnecessary overhead for executing blockchain's transactions. Why? Because Ethereum has no concept of like trusted code in a way. If user is deploying a smart contract, they need to have enough ether to execute it. So runtime development like sort of takes away that assumption, and then it's like, hey, you benchmark your function. If your function is taking, 0.001 millisecond to execute, and that's the worst case scenario, So I'm going to give you a prepaid balance, of this 0.001 execution time. You are free to like just run the transaction without ever having to check whether you have the gas or not. So all these tiny design decisions that Polkadot took, keep adding to the performance, but also add to the confusion of like people who are not familiar with these concepts, right? So runtime, it gives you that levels of blockchain control and then customizability. Fine. So, and then if you're even further interested in like Polkadot architecture and its core, design principles, its core protocol, then you could explore this option as well. So you can become a Polkadot core developer. So you'd be contributing to one of the repositories of like Polkadot SDK, whether it's like, building these palettes or building like this roll-up framework, how parachains interact with like Polkadot. Yeah, so there's a lot of like room there as well if you're interested to develop like core protocol. And finally, there's tooling, right? So we built this blockchain infrastructure. We need tools to work with this infrastructure. So that's what these tools take care of. And I can't emphasize this enough. Like you have to listen to Sean Taprizi, who is like one of the Polkadot fellow, part of like the Polkadot Technical Fellowship, works at Parity. He has this amazing, outlook on like blockchain, Web3, and Polkadot in general. And he also delivers like very resourceful talks. So I would say his presentation on building on Polkadot is very resourceful. So if you like to check this out, and if you see him speak about like the slides, I think I've added that link as well. So please do watch it. So yeah, and web development libraries, right? Like if you're planning to do some web development, so Polkadot API or PAPI, this is part of like the hackathon bounty. So there's $5,000 bounty set on using this library. So the idea is that Polkadot JS API, it's there, it works. I just showed you how to interact with chains using Polkadot JS API. But the thing is, there's no active development for that API. So now all the active developers are engaging in perfecting this library. So now we are at a juncture where a lot of Polkadot applications use still this legacy API. We want to switch to this new API, and that change is not very easy to sort of enforce because like we're in a decentralized ecosystem. Everybody chooses like their own thing, right? So this hackathon, the reason we put a bounty on this is that we want to encourage people to start exploring this new library. It comes apparently with a lot of improvements, but we need to hear that from you as developers. We don't want to be in our echo chamber and think that, yeah, hey, this product is cool. But we want you as a developer to be able to distinguish between like what features are being exposed in this API versus this one, which one works faster, which one is well suited for your application. We want to hear that story, and that story is part of like the hackathon submission. So we're interested in hearing that and sort of improving Polkadot and Web3 as an ecosystem. So there are plenty of tutorials to get started. So I've given all those links. I'll spare some time for you to explore it later on. I won't click on any of these links. And there's also a Polkadot dApp template. So basically, as the tweet says, you can spin up like a sample Polkadot dApp within 5 minutes. So check it out. So that's the GitHub repository for that. And again, like in the hackathon guidelines, you'll see that usage of AI is encouraged. So we are not discouraging people from not using AI. So we want you to use like AI tools and sort of explore all the possibilities with building on Polkadot. So feel free to plug this into like your AI tool, whichever one you're using, try to prompt it to build something with like this API, maybe a governance platform or like, I don't know, staking platform, give it like templates and the check like what can be built with this API. Fine. So if you're like a hardcore like Rust developer and then you do not want to like even look at like JavaScript or TypeScript libraries, there's a way for you to build like web applications just by using like Rust. And the tool you can use is called subxt. So this is a web application that I personally developed at like Web3 Foundation. This was more of like a weekend project. So because none of the mainstream wallets were including this vesting dot like option, this is something that's of interest to people who received dot in locked format, right? So I just like created this interface so that people could just select an account on which they can unvest the dot. So this whole web application was built with Rust and Wasm. And if you're interested, like I provided some templates as well. And you can do more with like subxt. And yes, if you're like thinking of ideas to develop, people have curated them at this like website. Again, like we're a very decentralized ecosystem. Many people drive like many initiatives. So you've heard like Open Guild earlier, they're doing some stuff as well. So there are different channels through which like you can engage with like Polkadot ecosystem. So this is one of the inlets where you can find some reasonable ideas to tinker with. And yes, so we are at the contract development, right? So this is where the huge bounty is sort of set. So let's see what's coming to Polkadot. So now, previously, when we had like smart contract development track, we encourage people to develop them on one of the parachains. So either Moonbeam or Astar or Akala. So there are few chains that were supporting like smart contracts, right? So but none of them like natively execute on Polkadot protocol, and this is changing soon. So this framework is already live on Polkadot testnet. It's called Westend. So the way it works is you can write a Solidity code, smart contract and Solidity, or you can also use like a Rust-based smart contract, which we call Ink. So there'll be a hackathon like webinar on Ink as well later on. So the way it works is it compiles it into this bytecode that is executed on a virtual machine, which we call Polka VM. So it's not EVM, it's a different virtual machine using RISC-V architecture. It should definitely improve the performance. So for instance, if you have a smart contract, Solidity smart contract running on EVM, and the same Solidity smart contract, you port it and run it on PVM, compare like which one is more efficient. So the answer that we are expecting is PVM, right? So that should be the unique selling point for these biggies like Uniswap or Aave to consider even deploying to like Polkadot. Why do we have to switch to this like new way of doing things? So we have to show that there's a something positive here, something unique. And one of the things is the performance improvement. So the idea is that if you're writing Solidity code, whatever is happening behind the scenes shouldn't be your headache. The Polkadot developers should take care of like all of this tooling, all of the integration in such a way that it should feel like you're deploying on either Ethereum or you're deploying it on one of the Ethereum L2s, right? So that's the level of developer experience that we are trying to bring to the table here. And again, like your input in sort of bootstrapping smart contract platform on Polkadot is very crucial to us. So we want your input, and that's also part of like one of the deliverables of this hackathon project. So if you want to learn like the backdrop of it, I encourage you to watch this talk. But you can also wait till day after tomorrow. So Cyril will actually go through this talk with you with a lot of updated info as well. Yeah, so we've done some benchmarks. So it looks like PVM interpreter as well as PVM like recompiler. So it's always performing, efficiently. So we want to test that out in a production environment. So recently, even like Gav sort of tweeted this. So comparison of EVM and PVM, we are looking at hundreds and thousands of improvement in the gas limit that can be processed within a block. So if you're interested in learning more, you should look at the latest implementation that Gav is working on. It's called Jam. So this will be the next major upgrade for like Polkadot protocol. But in any case, so it's going to use this Polka VM, which is going to be used for native smart contracts execution on Polkadot Hub as well. So yes, so there are, for the workshop, I encourage you to look at Solidity. If you want to use Ink, that's also fine. It's also part of the prize pool. So we dedicated, equal share for both these contracts, but we are very interested in like Solidity, smart contract deployment on Polkadot. So I have some links for Ink tutorial as well. And yeah, so runtime development, again, the focus is like zero knowledge runtime, right? So, and I understand like most of you don't have the backdrop knowledge for developing runtime using Polkadot SDK, but if that is where you want to go, so I have few resources for you here. So you can go to the .code school and then try the Substrate Kitties like tutorial. So that gives you an understanding of how you write the code. How do you create storage items? How do you create these function calls that you will be able to call from outside? How do you have these events that are recorded on the blockchain? How do you have errors that are displayed to the user when something goes wrong? How do you have hooks where you specify, hey, when the block is being built, on initialize, I want to run certain code. So there's a lot of base level control that you'll get with this runtime, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but once you get used to it, you'll see the beauty of it. You're able to build applications that are a lot more powerful than smart contracts. So yes, so if you're already familiar with like runtime, you've did some runtime development like before, and you're sort of interested in what's coming next, I would say you should check out this presentation by Kian during Sub-Zero Reset last year. So he has gone through a very detailed session on what improvements are coming next, so, which should probably excite you as well. Yeah, and then this is something that I personally delivered as part of like Polkadot Blockchain Academy lecture. So if any of you is interested in launching an app chain, a Parachain on Polkadot or Kusama, or even like one of its testnets, feel free to talk to me. We also created like a workshop during Sub-Zero Reset, which if you go through, you get like the whole idea of how to do it. So my answer is, launching an app chain is not that difficult. So we are also, I'll also add like this new thing. It's called Polkadot Deploy. So that lets you like launch like a parachain in a couple of hours. So a lot of progress has been made in this direction. So yeah, if you're interested in exploring this in sometime during this hackathon, and if you hit any like roadblock, like you can reach out to me. So yeah, so this parachain, once it's launched, it should be able to purchase like core time and block space through these markets right there. So this is like one of the biggest entry barriers. So to be able to register your WebAssembly, right? So I told you all the Polkadot validators have to fetch your runtime cartridge and load it into their console. So that comes with a storage space requirement, right? So So the whole Polkadot network state, it has to have your Parachain code stored, and that comes with a cost. So probably this is like one of the entry barriers, like if you want to launch your Parachain, but we're trying to lower these deposits so that you'll be able to launch an app chain if you wanted to in a much more seamless manner. Yeah, there are plenty of templates to get started from. So if you want to have like an EVM compatible chain, Open Zeppelin has like a template for you. And they also have like a generic template. So you need not write everything from scratch for the runtime. So you get all these libraries that you can use to launch your app chain. So yeah, the two things that you need to care about is like the business logic of the chain and the genesis state of the chain, right? So in the genesis block, the initial block, you have to set, hey, which cryptographic account will have the pseudo access on my chain? Which accounts will have some preloaded balance of the token? Will my chain have a treasury account? What kind of state information that you need in the blockchain at the block number 1, you put that in the genesis state, and then the WebAssembly file is going to contain the state transition function, which contains all the extrinsics that I've shown, all the palettes, all the storage items, the way to store them. I think all of that is embedded in here. So once you register that, and you should be able to onboard your app chain, and then the app chain sort of produces the blocks when the onboarding is finished. So yeah, a lot of this, I think I don't have to go through in detail for at least this hackathon. So I would say like Polkadot does this information transfer between this roll-up parachain and like the relay chain in a very efficient manner. So it only sends the data that is actually changed in the Merkle tree of the state, and the data that hasn't been changed, you just preserve the hash, and you just send this Merkle tree to the Polkadot validators to sort of like validate it. So there's a lot of test tooling, like, mainly for cross-chain testing. So if you're building like cross-chain applications, you can, make use of one of these tools and monitor the cross-chain messages and the logs. So for more ideas, like, if you're like a core developer or wishing to go into the core development of like Polkadot protocol, so this link will get to you the wish list of like developers. And then there is a wish list of users, right? Like, so users may have like a completely different priority of what needs being implemented on Polkadot protocol. So if any of those like click to you and then you want to spend your time developing them, it will not only fetch you, a good edge in this hackathon, but also it'll enable you to get like a lot more funding through other means as well. But the point being, all of this runtime development, we are interested in using that for zero knowledge, right? So if a ZK code is embedded in the form of a smart contract, we know the ZK is like very expensive. It might benefit from, being executed in runtime or even, I don't know, off-chain worker. So we have like this architecture that's open for you, the way you'd like to design a ZK application using Polkadot SDK. So we're interested in seeing what progress you'll make on that bounty. So yep, so there's also Polkadot developer like bounties repo. And then there is this Polkadot open source stack. So this, I can actually click it on it. Let's see what happens. So instead of so if you have like an application area in mind, you don't have to start from scratch. So all of these projects were funded by Web3 Foundation. So we ensure like they put their code online, like as an open source. So you can fork any of these like repositories and then start working from there. So you don't have to reinvent everything and redo all the code. So you should be able to do this. So this link sort of gives you that. And yeah, so we also have like a very active grants program. So if you're interested in checking out like the grants that were accepted previously, all of that information is open. The reviews are open. The application is open. The feedback is open. So everything is on the GitHub repository. So this gives you an idea of like what we as Web3 Foundation are looking for. So if you're planning to apply for a grant on maybe DeFi or social media or something, check out like applications that are already but approved, and that gives you like a template to get started. And recently, the Polkadot Treasury also approved this fast grants bounty. So one of the things I'm going to do for this hackathon is when we see a project that has like potential, the Web3 Foundation will personally recommend that project to this fast grants bounty, where you could get up to $10,000 within like 2 weeks, right? So the idea is that you get this capital fast so that you can try out your ideas even better. We can also match you with potential like venture capitalists, VCs, or like funding agencies to take your product and then give you an on-ramp for like a quick launch of your product. So yes, so that's what I want to highlight. So the hackathon actually doesn't end here. This 4 weeks, you can view that as like a step towards like much more opportunities within the ecosystem. And we do have this vibrant governance. So Polkadot is like the biggest DAO out there. In fact, like the whole Encode Club hackathon is being funded by the Polkadot Treasury money. So yeah, so the Treasury has like so this distribution. So we have like stables, we have like DOT, and depending on like the needs of the proposer, the referenda, so they're gonna ask for single time payment or multi-stage payment. So the amount of work that went into sort of perfecting this DAO style like governance on Polkadot. So Polkadot is setting an example for how on-chain governance can be done. So that didn't come easily, or so we had to work our way through in the last 3 years to get to where we are. So this OpenGov Watch is a website that lets you explore Polkadot governance as well. And they have office hours. So if you have a project and you think that Polkadot community might be much more receptive of it, you can reach out to OpenGov Watch. They will provide you guidance with how to approach the Polkadot community. And yeah, so there's plenty of like education opportunities as well. Encode Club is great, but if you want to go even further, we currently have Polkadot Blockchain Academy running in Switzerland. So it is all paid for, like, the hotel is paid for, you get like meal vouchers. All you have to do is come to the location where this academy is being offered. So you'll have access to most of the experts within the Polkadot ecosystem, spending time with you 3 weeks to teach you, different things about like developing on Polkadot, right? So, and for those of you who can't commit like 3 weeks of in-person time, so we are also bootstrapping a lot of like online education programs. So PBAX is like one of those initiatives we did in January. So if you're interested, there's one cohort that is starting on April 14th. So you can check out like PBAX, Polkadot Blockchain Academy, and then you'll see it. Yeah, this is what I was mentioning about. So there's a new cohort that is starting on April 14th. This goes from the basics like cryptocurrency, not cryptocurrency, cryptography, game theory, economics, blockchain, and then you jump into like what's Polkadot, its architecture and its governance, and so on and so forth. And yeah, so for those of you who are really sold on like Polkadot vision, if you want to be part of like the Polkadot Technical Fellowship, it comes with a lot of perks. So you can actually earn salary from the treasury. So literally, the Polkadot treasury is going to run a payroll for you. So the salaries range starts from like 10,000 for like rank 1 to 200,000 for like I think rank 4 or rank 5. So yeah, so Polkadot does offer in a decentralized way for you to like contribute to the ecosystem and be rewarded for it. And we're even pushing the boundary of like Web3. So in the future, so I told you Polkadot runtime is much more efficient than smart contracts. So now Jam is going to make it like even more efficient by running your application as a service. So to fully understand like what I mean by service, I think I can't do justice to it yet, but um, yeah, Gavin Wood actually demonstrated running this game called Doom on chain, where every part of like the game is running on chain, right? So that's a remarkable achievement. It's not running as like a, I don't know, like off chain process and then committing something to it. The whole game itself is running on chain, which is a remarkable thing. And that's what like Jam is going to be like once in the future. The entire Polkadot relay chain architecture and design, it's going to be embedded as one of the services that runs on Jam to give you a scale of what's coming next. And here's my contact details, so you can add me on the socials, you can add me on LinkedIn. Over the next 4 weeks, I'll try to interact with all of you, who's trying to reach out to me. So there's this Encode Discord server, there's this Polkadot Discord server. Feel free to register to all of them and then sort of start this conversation going. And with that, I sort of end this talk and see how everybody is doing. That's a
There's
lot of
lots of questions. You're a popular man. So,
okay. Yeah, I rambled a lot. I hope
you've
it
rambled
sounds
coherently. It's not rambling. So yeah. How do you want to do this? Do you want me to read them? Do you want to cherry pick yourself? Yeah, go for it.
you can read them for me. I think I don't know where the questions
Why
are.
not? I get to rouse the old vocal cords. All right. So some of these have been answered as we've gone along, such as your background. You did that immediately. Extra point for using multiple partners, not formally, but if you do it in a neat manner that is for the benefit of the overall application, you minimally make yourself more open to more potential bounties. If you do it well, it's good. What's the most popular project on Polkadot? Well, you talked about gaming. I guess there's two ways, both at the protocol level and on the application level. Go on, tell us maybe your favorites on Polkadot at the moment, or the ones that are gaining popularity.
Yeah, I think I really like what Hydration did. Like anybody who's into like DeFi should check out like their runtime primitives. Like they've managed to solve a lot of problems that are encountered with like typical smart contract based, DeFi applications. They have like this dollar cost averaging feature. I think they're doing something to not let this MEV thing be an issue, like when you're issuing like transactions. Yeah, so I would, yeah, if you're familiar with DeFi, which is what like most of the like Web3 people are familiar with, I think you should take a look at like what Hydration built on their platform. But if you're like thinking even further, I would look at the DSNP implementation by frequency.
Yeah.
So DSNP is like decentralized social networking protocol. It's so they had to do a huge extensive search on like multiple blockchain platforms. In their forum post, they mentioned about 40 of them, and then they narrowed down on Polkadot for a reason, because that's what gives them a lot of flexibility. So we have this concept called as chain extensions or transaction extensions. So you could actually extend a transaction by adding additional input parameters, and then the chain API sort of decides, to do some pre-processing and then sort of submit it on chain. So a lot of customization is possible, and then they chose that. So personally, for me, the favorite project is Frequency. And then there's Mythos, which is enterprise grade project. So yeah, all of those are cool projects. And then once we have native smart contracts, we would like to see, one of the popular names come and execute on Polkadot, and blow the performance out of like the charts, and we can get started there, I guess.
That'd be great. So there's a question about the most valuable pre-existing skill set. I think let's call it broad technical skill set, language-based skill set. I guess the answer is going to be Solidity, right? Or what are you going to say? What is the most valuable one that the Polkadot ecosystem is looking to acquire right now?
So right now, absolutely. Like we want to be on the world map of Solidity developers. So far, we've been ignored by them because we don't have Solidity smart contracts that can be natively deployed on Polkadot. So we want to be one of their compilation targets going forward, at least this year. We just want people experiment with, hey, deploy on Polkadot and see what happens, right? So what do we get out of it? Can we do something cool, like, do a cross-chain call with like a smart contract, which is not possible on an Ethereum or L2. So I'd like people to think of like Polkadot as a place to explore Solidity smart contracts and expand, what they can achieve with Solidity.
Nice. How does Polkadot's modularity compare with Celestia?
Yeah, Celestia is mostly like a DA thing, right? So we provide like execution sharding. So we're like, you bring your program, you bring your game, you bring your cartridge, we're going to plug it into our console and then play it for you. So we're not making any assumptions on how customized like your blockchain runtime is. Whatever it is, here are the preset limits, so you just need to follow the API specifications that we have. As long as you package your transaction data in that format, we are happy to just, execute it for you, secure your transaction. So yeah, we're very different from Celestia. Celestia lets you put like the state information or like, blockchain data as a DA layer. But yeah, we do much more than that.
Nice. Can we expect any upgrades to Polkadot.js? Someone asks.
No, so that's the whole thing. Like we are short on like developers who will be actively maintaining that library. So that's why the Polkadot API has like this $5,000 bounty. Like we want to see a lot more people like use this new API, and it has like a really good team. I hope to get some of them involved. But yeah, so they're all presently in Lucerne teaching at Polkadot Blockchain Academy. So yeah, definitely check out like Polkadot API. That's where all the future Polkadot applications are going to be built on.
Nice. Someone asked, would you prefer we focus on the protocol application side? The application side, do you want people building smart contracts, I assume?
So in applications track, like you can use the API that is exposed like Polkadot, all the runtime modules that I mentioned. So they're all exposed to you. So you should be able to build, I don't know, like a staking application or, improving governance situation on Polkadot, because it's an ocean. Like, in governance of Polkadot, you can actually delegate to someone. You can delegate on a specific track to someone. You can delegate to someone with some conviction. If you lock your dot for next 1 year, you get 6 times more dot voting power. If you just lock it for 1 week, you get like 1x like power. If you don't lock it, you get 0.1x power. So there's a lot of things that first you need to understand about protocol and then present it in a way that the user is not like overwhelmed. So right now, a lot of Polkadot governance platforms, they fail to capture the interest of a normal user because they're overloaded with info, right? So I want to see applications that look at Polkadot feature, create like an application using the API exposed, and make it like very intuitive for the users to use.
Nice. Will we have a second PBA campus this year?
Yes, so there's going to be one more PBA offering. It might be somewhere in Asia. I don't know the exact details. I think they're being like confirmed, but there is like going to be a Jam, Polkadot like Jam PBA as well. I think this one definitely is in Bali, and this is probably end of this year. So the whole Doom thing running on chain, it's maturing. I think there's going to be like a proper place where you could safely explore this new technology.
Excellent. Other questions? What's the difference between a solo chain and a parachain?
Yeah, so I told you that for Parachain, from block number 1, your transactions are fully secured by the Polkadot validators. But if you're a solo chain, so Polkadot SDK doesn't restrict you. There have been numerous chains that are built with Polkadot SDK that didn't become like parachains on Polkadot, which is fine. So all they had to do was bootstrap like their own validator network. So you have to figure out whether you want to have some kind of like proof of stake or proof of work, or you figure out your own consensus mechanism and block authorship rules, and ensure that your network can't be like attacked, right? So if you go the parachain route, then you don't have to worry about all of that. You just worry about building like a application use case. But if you're a solo chain, then you have to think about a lot of other things as well.
Excellent. Is there a ZK parachain? I can think of it, but yes.
So there is something called I actually added this as a resource. I think it's called probably ZK Sync or no. So ZK Verify. Okay. Anyway, so you'll get like a startup pack, which contains like actually a substrate based like solo chain. So they're not parachain, but they've built like this modular ZK framework, like using Polkadot SDK. So I have a link for that, which I'll share shortly.
Okay, nice. Is there anything I can build with Golang in Polkadot?
No, but we would like to. I think we have a Polkadot client that is built with like Go, the node. But yeah, I can't imagine. Most of it's Rust. So Rust is like the most popular language used within like Polkadot. We have like a C++ client, Go client. Yeah, but that's restricted to just like Polkadot node for now.
Nice. Let's see if there's anything else. Is Interlay still running the Bitcoin bridge? I think it is. They're not called Interlay anymore. They're called... oh my
They're
God.
Bob, but so Interlay was their project. Like I don't think there's any active development going on there.
No.
Yeah, they've pivoted, and then now they're like Bob, which is fine. But Interlay just proves that Polkadot technology stack is capable of creating bridges to Bitcoin, or I even joked about like creating a bridge to Dogecoin, because basically Doge is like a great fork of like Bitcoin, right? So you could just fork off Interlay code, just do a bunch of changes and then bridge to like Dogecoin. But I don't think many people were interested in that. So.
Excellent. Well, guys, you've been treated today. Please now, if we are ending, we've run on, but we've probably ended with many questions still to answer. So take those to the Discord. Take those directly to our brilliant partners, mentors, helpers. Come to us, come to them. We look forward to seeing your ideas. There are many more workshops to go over the next 2 weeks. And one of the special sources of Encode, or the special source, is that we want to get you on one-to-one calls, one-to-one messages, provide as much one-to-one support as we can. We're a big team. That's what we're here for, to maximize your chance of success, both in this hackathon and through the many incentives that the Polkadot ecosystem does. I think from all the ecosystems we work with, better than anyone else in terms of funding and support and the different avenues available. So thank you, everyone. Thank you also to our partners who spoke at the launch events. Have a wonderful evening wherever you are, and we will see you very soon. Radha, thank you again. Have a lovely evening in Switzerland.
Thank you, Anthony.
Cheers. Bye. Thank you. Bye.